Okay, so we have opened up a new file. This is just a regular old picture, and we want to start working on creating a new video. As you've done before, to start off, we're going to go ahead and click on Window, and we're going to show the timeline. Timeline pops up at the bottom, and we create video timeline. And now I've got the very basic components of creating a video timeline. So where are we at? Who has something that they're stuck with, a question, an issue, a struggle with this? And you've kind of hit a brick wall putting this together. Yes, Elena. How to put text in. Excellent. I'm going to throw a couple pictures in first so you can see what it would look like with a couple pictures in, and then we're going to put some text over top for an overlay. That's a really good initial technique here. So if you see, I've started off with layer 0 and audio track below. This layer 0 is the picture I have. If I pull my seek bar across, I'm seeing that. And over my layers panel, I can see that picture as well. You want to make sure you can see all of this as you're working. And to add new pictures to this video track, I hit the little plus sign here. So I'm going to start doing that. I'm just going to plop in a couple of pictures to get started here. Just random things. Chris Pratt, you know, because who doesn't like Chris Pratt, right? Chris Pratt, yeah. What's wrong with Chris Pratt? You don't like Chris Pratt? He may have been. I don't know. I didn't see it. All right, so I got some pictures in here, right? If I slide this across now, I see each of them in turn. And I'm going to get to some of the issues that I have right now with these in a little bit after I answer Elena's question. So to add text, I have to first add a second video track. They call them video groups. I like to call them video tracks because that's what they look like. And to do that, I'm going to go right here. Little drop down, and then new video group. You see it gives me a whole new line in here to add things. And before, to add new things, I went to the plus sign and I added new pictures. But this time, I want to add something blank that I can put my own things on top of. So to do that, I have to add a new layer. Let's take a look over here at my layers panel. Layers panel is where I get to manipulate some of these things I put in. And you notice now that I've added a new video group. It's showing me both video groups here. Video group 2, video group 1. The layers panel and the video timeline directly interact with each other. So I select one over here, it selects it down below. And I can actually edit the names, so I could like call this photos. You notice how it changes in both locations, and call this one here text, changes in both locations. I kind of like to do that because it makes it a little clearer. Now I've got the text video group selected in my layers panel. I want to make a new blank layer. To do that, I come down to the bottom bar here of my layers panel, and this button here says create a new layer. Boom. New layer comes up as the default size. You'll notice each of these came up as a default length when I made them, and I can make each of them longer by clicking and dragging on them. I'm going to make each of them a little longer just to give me a little more space here to work with today. All right. This is going to be my text layer. If I select it down here, it selects up here, and vice versa. So I've got my layers selected. I've got to have the layers selected in order to edit it. This is true across all of Photoshop and across all of time. It will never change. You've got to have the layers selected to edit it. So, layers selected. I want to add some text. Text. Draw my box. Because the pictures that you've taken are absolutely huge, you're going to have to make your text really large as well. Your phones take very, very large pictures, much larger than the picture I have up on the screen right now. You're not going to know that by glancing, but notice up here, it tells me I'm at 25% zoom. You probably, when you put your pictures in, see something like 10% zoom, meaning the picture's really, really big. Your text will have to be really, really big as well. So there's a chance you start typing in here and the default font size is so small you see nothing. And you're like, well, where's my text? Well, it's so small you can't see it. So I recommend making it way too big to start with. You can always make it smaller to get from there. So up here are all your text options across the top. One of them is font size. And the highest it goes up to is 72. And I've had some people say, well, Mr. King, that's still too small. Still too small, right? I can type anything I want to in this box. I'm not limited by the preset options. That's better, right? And now I can move it around. What I really like in this interface is as I move it around, you see the little purple lines I get? I don't know if you noticed this, I took this little box that I had and I made it the size of the text that I created. I did that before I started moving things around. I then went over to the Move tool and started moving. If I do that correctly, the purple lines will help me to lay this out on my screen. It's really helpful for these videos because it lets me make sure that everything's lined up the way I want it to be. So now I can put this where I want it to be. Let's put it there. And let's throw some new text in. So we're going to make sure we're selecting the text group, new layer, and type some text in. We're going to make our box smaller. Move it over here. Now, what you see on your screen at all times is dictated by where this seek head is. This little thing right here. This is called the seek head. This dictates what you see on the screen. As I move this around, you'll notice I can see Hi Elena, and then it switches over to What's Up as it switches from one piece of text to the other. Right now, the transition between the two is called a cut transition. It's just boom, one to the next, one to the next. Sometimes you want that jarring cut transition. It's what you're looking for. Sometimes it's not. And you'll note in the requirements for your activity, I specifically said I want you to try using some different transitions. So let's try something called a crossfade. This is your transitions panel right here. I'll click on it. I'm going to drag crossfade between them. Now it's really hard to see that transition, right? Can you guys even tell it's there right now? Kind of hard to see it, isn't it? If I want to zoom in on things, I have this bar down here at the bottom. This makes everything bigger and smaller. Now I can actually see these two panels closer, and I can see my crossfade transition between them. I can make that transition last longer if I want to, by simply dragging it out. And that means that the fading between the two things will last longer. Let's watch it. These buttons up here let your video play. It lets it play out. And you can see how fast things work, as opposed to just dragging the seek head, which is controlled by you. Click the button and you can see how it actually works. So crossfade means one thing fades out while the other one fades in. Okay? You guys can play with that. Elena, did that answer your question? Good. Other questions? What else do we have that we are struggling with? Yes?
Did you do audio?
Yeah, sure. I have a couple audio tracks I downloaded. Is anybody first having struggles with actually finding and downloading the audio? Or are we able to do that? Julia, were you able to get audio downloaded?
You know, at that point yet, but like just.
Yep. All right. Well, I'll help you download it when we download it. I'm going to show you how to get it in here first, right? So you'll note when I made this initially and I created the video timeline, the audio track was here, right? This whole thing was part of what came in. I didn't have to put this here. I want you to notice that. And like everything else, there's a plus button to the side of it. I'm going to click the plus button, and I'm going to look for the audio track that I downloaded. Oh boy, where did I put those? I believe they are in here. So here are my audio tracks. I downloaded these three. I'm going to go ahead and pick this one. I like this one. When I click open, it plops it in here. It's a green bar, okay? And it puts the full audio track in. So if the audio track is like 10 minutes long, the whole thing goes on, and you'll notice as I zoom out here, it affects the total length of my video. Now I don't I don't encourage you to mess around. I don't encourage you to mess around with cutting this or editing the length of your audio until you're done the video in its entirety. And then you can trim the length of the audio. When you're ready to trim it, it's the same way you do trimming everything else. You come to the end here, and you'll notice you get this little bar, little icon, and I can drag the length of my video audio, and that will change where it ends. It'll bring the end of the audio in. Does that make sense? I can do the same thing from the front, and that'll change where it starts. So you kind of want to play with that a little bit depending on what you want to hear of the audio you downloaded. If you want your audio to start where it started on the website, then you want to start without changing that. You also have the option here. If you right click on it, you get some options. You can change its volume. Right now it's at 100%. You can boost it or lower it however much you want based on how it sounds compared to whatever else you're doing. This is nice for if you've got multiple audio clips and you want one to be lower than the other or one higher than the other. You can kind of affect those. Also, the fade in and fade out. This is how many seconds of fade out it is at the end. So if you want the last like 5 seconds of the audio to have a slow fade at the end, it's a really nice effect to have, guys, with your sound. It makes it really seem professional. It also makes it seem really unprofessional if your audio at the end of your whole video just goes boom and stops. A hard stop. That seems really unprofessional. It's a really cool effect if you can decide the last 2 seconds or last 3 seconds or whatever of my audio is just going to slow fade out. It's just a nice little trick to do. You can also have a fade in the first however many seconds you want to fade in. That's somewhat more rare, but it depends upon your sound and what you want it to do, especially if you were trimming that beginning and you're not starting where the audio started. Then this is kind of a nice thing to do. Okay? Did that answer that question, Julia? All right, I'll help you download it if we need to download it later. All right, other questions? What else do we have? What else were we struggling with? Anything? You feel like we're pretty confident? We're in good shape to wrap this up for early next week? All right. I want your absolute best. I want you to take the time to get it done right. All right? Take the time to do it right. This will be up on YouTube later today if you guys need to reference it. Oh, yeah. Quick. So I did want to show you that. Yeah, go ahead. Do you want me to show you different, like changing the sizing of pictures and stuff?
Yeah.
So you'll note when I brought my pictures in, they're different sizes, right? I did that intentionally to show you this. So the crop tool, this crop tool over here, changes the panel here of your video. It crops the video itself. So you really don't want to use the crop tool at this stage in the process. It's a little late to kind of mess around with cropping pictures when you're in here. But there are other things you can do. So for example, this picture is way too small, right? I don't want it to look like this in my final video, do I? What I want to do is I want to use the transform tools. In order to do that, I have to make sure I first have what selected. Layer, right? Remember, in order to edit anything, I must have the layer selected. So I gotta make sure I click on the layer here. I check, make sure the layer is selected over here. And then I'm gonna go up to edit and down to transform. There's two options here. I have free transform and transform. Free transform, I feel like gives you too much control. Never want to give you too much control. There's too many things you can do to mess things up. I like better to go to transform and to pick the thing that you specifically want to do. For example, in this case, I specifically want to scale it. I'm going to get my transform controls here. Now, without touching anything, if I grab this, you'll notice I can do all kinds of ridiculousness to this. And that's kind of bad, right? I probably want to keep it in the orientation it was. The shift key on my keyboard will lock it in the orientation it was in. See that? I'm going to hold down my shift key while I scale it. Now, I'm going to add a few more keyboard commands to you here. I'm holding down the shift key right now. I'm continuing to hold it down as I do this so you can see the scaling. What problem am I running into? I'm only going to one side, right? And it's going to go off the page, right? Another button, I'm going to continue holding down my shift key. I'm not letting go of it. See what happens when I let go of it? I'm not letting go of the shift key. I'm now going to also press down the alt key and watch what that does. Watch what happens, the difference between pressing down the alt key, not pressing down the alt key. Alt key, not alt key. The alt key now is allowing me to, it's called scale from center. Does that make sense? The alt key allows me to scale from center. Yeah, I know, it's a small picture and it looks hideous. Leave me alone. Now I get it to the size I want it to be. What I need to do next is let go of the mouse button first. This is absolutely crucial. Some of you are going to want to let go of everything all at the same time. Watch what happens when I do that. That was awful, right? I'm not going to do that. What you want to do, Shift-Alt, drag it, let go of the mouse key first. Then let go of the modifier keys. I had the Shift key and the Alt key held down. If I let go of them before I let go of the mouse key, the effects they were having go away before I let go of the mouse key. Does that make sense? Okay. So I can come along to each of these pictures here. I have to remember to select, fix that. Then I come over here. By the way, didn't Photoshop do a really good job of cleaning that up when I selected OK? Photoshop's amazing, isn't it? You guys don't appreciate it enough. I feel like he's a little too big, isn't he? I mean, come on. Who wants that much Chris Pratt? So I'm going to scale him down a little bit. Now, what problem am I having here? I really can't use the Alt key, right? Because it's too big and I can't scale from center. I'm going to use another key. Okay. And then I'm going to move him in. I'm going to hold down Shift. Move him in, and now I get him in the middle here. Let's line him up. See those little purple lines? And now I can go Shift Alt, scale him to fit the way I want, and finish it. And there he looks good. That's better. That's the right amount of Chris Pratt. I can go through and do all of that. So, Aiden, you want to crop the picture because you only want to show part of it. That's what you were saying, right? So the best way to get that effect is to use the video frame here as kind of a crop tool using that transform effect. Let me show you. So let's say I do just want to have a portion of Chris Pratt. Let's come in here, transform again, scale. Let's say all I really want of Chris Pratt is his nose. All right, I can use my scale tool and I can use the video borders as a crop tool. You see that? I'm only going to see what's inside the video borders. Actually, that's still not just his nose. Let's go ahead and get a little more. There, that's a little better. I only want that much Chris Pratt. So I can't crop it, but I can make it so that the only the part that I want fills the video borders. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. You can't use the crop tool. You can use the video's frame as a pseudo crop tool. Does that answer that question, Aiden? Okay. Any other questions before we wrap this one up? All right. My YouTube channel's link is on the top, the very top of your Schoology page. I encourage you to subscribe to it. If I get to 100 subscribers, I get to have my own custom URL. So please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I will also have links to these on the Schoology page for your assignments. So if you need to get direct links to these videos, they will be directly there for you to access them at any time to get answers to your questions. Again, they will also be up on the YouTube page. You need to access them there.